exiled, locked up, beaten, and gunned down. Speak out against the government in Cambodia, and it seems one way or the other, you'll be silenced. I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we travel from Bangkok to London, Paris to Phnom Penh, as we trace the power and wealth of Cambodia's long-serving leader, Prime Minister Hun Sen.
My husband lay in a pool of blood. It was hard to believe. I just couldn't believe it was my husband lying there in a pool of blood.
Bo Richana's husband, Kem Lay, was one of Cambodia's most popular social commentators and a staunch critic of government corruption.
I always worried about his safety because his job was risky. I told him, "Darling, please be careful. We have 4 children."
But in July last year, at the age of 45, he was shot dead. Within an hour of his murder, a man was arrested and soon after paraded before the media. He claimed his name was Chob Samlab, which in Khmer literally means meat to kill. He also said Kem Lay owed him $3,000, and that's why he killed him.
I knew my husband's mind and heart very well. He never uttered a word about borrowing money. I can't accept that he was killed because of $3,000. I dismiss this. It's not true. My husband was a good man. I didn't expect them to be so brutal. They killed my husband.
This is an act of state terrorism. Only the state has the means to perpetrate such an act and to cover it up.
Kem Lay was not an isolated incident. It was part of a much broader campaign of the ruling elite to silence the opposition voices. And it had all the hallmarks of a political assassination.
Having endured the horrors of genocide and war, many Cambodians believe they're once again battling an enemy within. The 1991 Paris Peace Agreement, sanctioned by the United Nations, promised to bring democracy to Cambodia. But more than 25 years later, Cambodians are faced with an increasingly repressive and deadly regime. The 2013 national election saw Hun Sen's ruling party win with a narrow majority amid claims of widespread electoral fraud. Now, in the long lead-up to the 2018 election, the government has launched an intensive crackdown on the opposition party and government critics in a desperate attempt to cling to power. Opposition party members have been seriously beaten, and more than a dozen are widely believed to be victims of politically driven trials, serving prison sentences of up to 20 years for anything from posting false information on Facebook to insurrection. On the other side of the world, long-time opposition leader Sam Rainsy has recently been stripped of his leadership title while he lives in exile in Paris. Not only is he banned from entering his own country on the grounds he'd cause bloodshed and destruction if he returned, but he's also facing jail sentences and is being sued for accusing the government of killing Kem Lay.
I am not afraid. I will explain and expose why I believe that Hun Sen and his government and his police were behind the murder.
When Kemlay was murdered, Bo Richana and her children lost a husband and father. And it seems Cambodians lost a favourite son. Tens of thousands turned out for his funeral and memorial to pay their respects.
He loved his family and all Khmers. He cared for the people more than himself.
In a country where more than a third of the population lives on or below the poverty line, the former medical doctor was a champion of the poor and vulnerable. He travelled to some of the most remote parts of the country to listen to the concerns of his compatriots and educate them about their rights.
He was just doing his job, not opposing anyone, but he was considered a dissident. Some don't want people to understand. They want them to be blind so it's easy to subjugate them and plunder their houses and land. The powerful people do not want their subjects to understand their rights.
The last thing the ruling elite want is for people to hear the truth about this exploitative and abusive system that they are perpetrating. The corruption and bribery that goes on.
Richard Rodgers is an international human rights lawyer based in Paris. He previously worked for the United Nations in Cambodia and has taken the extraordinary step of filing a case in the International Criminal Court against the country's ruling elite. He's alleging they've committed crimes against humanity in relation to land grabbing and persecuting dissidents. Kemlay's killing will now form part of his evidence.
As well as the forcible evictions, there's also been some shootings as villagers resist being forced from their land, and we've seen massive amounts of land transferred from regular Cambodian people to a very small minority of very wealthy Cambodians, with many government ministers and senators at the top of that hierarchy. Now, of course, in order for a small number of people to steal so many of the resources from a much larger number of people, they need to maintain power. And clearly, Kemlay became a threat. He became too popular. And particularly at this period of political instability before the election in 2017, 2018, clearly there was a motive to silence him.
They lie. There's a manipulate that they make a fake report to make the world pay much attention on that.
The Hun Sen government spokesman, Faye Safan, rejects the ICC case outright and says Kemlay's murder was an attempt by anti-government forces to smear the ruling Cambodian People's Party, or CPP.
It shocked, everyone shocked, even my Prime Minister shocked, my political party shocked that why it happened. And we know that why they kill him. They're going to be put that burden to CPP, political party, as well as the government.
A London-based anti-corruption NGO may hold a clue as to why Kemlay was targeted. Less than a week before his death, Global Witness released a groundbreaking report exposing the widespread business interests of the Hun Sen family.
They control who can invest in Cambodia. They control all of the main arms of government that enable that to happen. And so they just built this empire. They have an economic stranglehold, not just of the businesses that they can create for themselves or whatever, but a stranglehold of the competition. So, you know, they've got it made. What this family tree shows is, you know, either the family are in positions of power or they're married to people in positions of power. So there's not much that can go on in that government, whether it's in terms of law enforcement, military or investment, that they haven't got a finger in.
The Hun Sen family is tight-knit. The Prime Minister and his wife have 5 children. and a large extended family. Among them are members of the government, senior military figures, and numerous entrepreneurs. Between them, they have links to more than 100 companies across all sectors of the economy, including tourism, agriculture, mining, electricity, and the media, as well as affiliations with top international brands. Estimates of the family's combined wealth range from $500 million to $1 billion.
If you're a consumer in Cambodia, it's hard to go through a day without putting money into the pockets of the family numerous times. You know, whether you're visiting the museum in Angkor, filling your car with petrol, having a cup of coffee or buying condoms, you're putting money into that family's pocket.
2 days before he was murdered, Kem Lay was a guest on a radio talk show. The topic of discussion was a global witness investigation into the Hun Sen family business empire. Many now believe it was a fateful interview.
របាយការណ៍នេះខ្ញុំគិតថារដ្ឋាភិបាលក៏ត្រូវតែទទួលស្គាល់ថាវាមានសារៈសំខាន់ក្នុងការស្វែងយល់ក្រុមហ៊ុនមួយថាតើក្រុមហ៊ុននឹងវាពិតប្រាកដឬទេហើយធ្វើការបកស្រាយទៅដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅក្នុង114ក្រុមហ៊ុនហ្នឹងឧទាហរណ៍ច្បាប់ប្រឆាំងនឹងអំពើពុករលួយត្រូវមានការប្រកាសទ្រព្យសម្បត្តិជាចំហជាលក្ខណៈគ្រួសារហើយមានការស៊ើបអង្កេតប្រសិនបើទ្រព្យសម្បត្តិ
His friend and fellow analyst on the panel, Mies Nee, started to feel uneasy.
This one is really touching directly to the Hun family. This is why just make me a little bit scary. You know, if someone come and kill us, you know, we have nothing to do. It's just kind of feeling that I have never had before.
Yeah. It might have been the first time he feared for his own safety, but it wasn't the first time he feared for Kem Lay's.
Sometime he told me that there was someone came and looking for his house, you know, with the police uniform, and from time to time, you know, because Kem Lay have a lot of link with the high-ranking government officials, so one way or the other he would get some signal, you know, from them that you have to be careful and whatever.
So within the government he had some supporters who would look after him?
Yeah.
But on the morning of Sunday, the 10th of July last year, there was no one to protect him. So this is the Caltex service station in central Phnom Penh on one of the city's busiest boulevards, where Kem Lay was doing what he regularly did, having a morning coffee at the Star Mart Cafe when he was shot dead. A man has been charged with his murder, but it seems few are convinced he's the real culprit. It was along the footpath in this street, about a kilometre from the petrol station, that the accused was seen running. A phone video of his apparent escape was posted anonymously on the internet. So that's a policeman there?
Yeah, this is a policeman, and a motorbike is a special unit that can use this motorbike.
The first peculiar thing you notice on the video is that a policeman pulls up alongside the accused and rather than attempting to arrest him, lets him run on.
Maybe the police told him that, no, you have to further running.
Right. And then a little while later, the accused runs across the road directly to the same policeman.
You know, why this guy running along the path, but then he runs straight to the police here?
As bystanders begin to deliver their own justice, the police finally take the man into custody.
I think normally the police would put him on handcuff.
Yeah.
This video clip just gives public a lot of suspicion, you know, how much involvement the local police in this kind of killing.
And there's been no attempt by the government to counter those suspicions. Although the service station is surrounded by security cameras, no CCTV footage has been released to the public.
We have the video who killed that we have. We're not going to release to the public because the law, because in investigation period one. And second one, we understand that the Cambodian land become a political, issue.
So the government does have the CCTV vision of the murder scene?
Yeah, we do have it.
And it actually shows what happened?
The police, they said that the same face as a perpetrator that we get hold of him. I leave that for you to check with the Cambodian wife, because I didn't see that video.
Has she seen it?
Yes, she's already seen that.
Right. But that's not what she tells us.
They have never invited me to see it. They should not say they showed the footage to me. No, it's a lie. The government is more concerned about protecting itself than telling the truth. They didn't show the CCTV footage, yet they showed Meet to Kill as the killer. I can't accept it.
So who is this accused man who calls himself Meet to Kill and claims he shot Kem Lay with a powerful and expensive Glock pistol, all because the commentator owed him $3,000? In search of answers, we're heading to his hometown about 4 hours' drive from the World Heritage Site of Angkor Wat in the northwest province of Siem Reap, a long way from the scene of the crime. Our first stop, a remote Buddhist temple where he spent a couple of years as a monk, leaving 7 months before the murder. Here he was known as Uth Ang.
Novice monks who were under Earth Ang complained about him. They said he behaved savagely, beating, threatening, and bullying. He stole money that the locals donated to build a road. He spent it on himself and lost a lot gambling online.
The monk was dubious when news broke of Uth Ang's arrest.
I didn't believe it, because he never mentioned Kem Lay and never had money to lend to anyone. I believe that he must have been hired by someone to commit the killing.
The monk goes on to tell us that Uth Ang was a former soldier and that he often boasted about his prowess with a gun and his closeness to his former commander.
He still went to visit him at his house or at his barracks in the province. He said he could ask for anything he wanted and he'd get it. I believe he was hired as he wanted money and could be bought.
Back on our journey, we're deep inside a former Khmer Rouge stronghold. Propaganda posters of the Prime Minister Hun Sen are everywhere. In this village where the accused lived until recently, we find a man who's known him since the late 80s when he was a Khmer Rouge soldier.
After leaving the monkhood, he asked me if he could stay at my house, and I allowed him a room.
Like the monk, the man says he only ever knew his friend as Uth Ang and is still trying to fathom why he would have killed Kem Lay.
While he was staying here, he couldn't even afford to feed himself. Where did he get the money from? How did he even know Kem Lay? He lives so far away.
The man says Uth Ang suddenly disappeared from the village, but a week before the killing called from Phnom Penh and said he'd got a job as a soldier with a big salary of $300 a month.
Please find a job for me, if the pay's that good, I said. Yes, brother, I'm recruiting 2 more people, he said. But then the phone line dropped out.
He says the next time he heard from him, Uth Ang was in prison.
I questioned him about the killing, as I wanted to know. Why did you kill him? He said, brother, this is my affair. Let me solve it myself.
Not everyone we talk to is as forthcoming. Many people have told us that they're too scared to talk on camera. But off camera, a number of people from different villages have told us that a week or so before Kem Ley was shot, the accused murderer was called to a meeting of senior district and military officials, and straight after the meeting was put in a car and driven out of the area. One of the last people to see U Thang in his home province was this taxi driver, who dropped him off on the outskirts of the town of Siem Reap.
When I arrived, I dropped him at the taxi stand right there. He was in a hurry. He didn't even pay my taxi fare. I saw him get into a Lexus, but I don't know where he was going.
They have arrested somebody, but the story behind that assassin, that alleged assassin, is completely implausible. Nobody believed that story. Now, it may be that he pulled the trigger, but the question is, who put him up to it?
It's the same pattern of assassination. They never identify any culprit, credible culprit. And the real murderers are always free.
Exiled opposition leader Sam Rainsy says that's what happened in 2004 in another assassination of another outspoken critic of the Hun Sen government. Union leader Chia Vichia was gunned down in very similar circumstances.
Chia Vichia was killed at a place where he used to go. Every morning he used to go to buy newspapers, and they follow him. They knew his habit, and they sent killers. And the lady who sold the newspaper saw the killers very clearly, and they were well organized. And they did not arrest them, and instead they found some other people who have nothing to do with the real killers.
The government grabbed a couple of random young men from the countryside, tortured them into confessing into the crimes, and threw them in prison. After a lot of international pressure, they were eventually released by the Supreme Court. And I imagine that we're going to see a similar sort of farce in the case of Kem Ley.
While there is no direct evidence linking Hun Sen or his government to either the killing of Chia Vichia or Kem Ley, until there are thorough investigations and the real culprits are caught, the accusations are likely to continue. In his home province of Takeo, a couple of hours from the capital Phnom Penh, Kem Ley lies at rest. His elderly mother never leaves her son's tomb, sleeping beside it day and night.
I don't want to think about who killed him. I just feel sad. I miss my son.
Not only has she lost her son, her family has been torn apart, her daughter-in-law and grandchildren fleeing the country.
I miss them so much. I don't know when I will see my grandchildren again.
Kem Ley's wife and children are now temporary refugees in Thailand's capital, Bangkok. They escaped to the neighbouring country after fearing for their lives.
My husband was killed in the center of the capital, and justice has not been done. I worried about my own safety and that of my children. They might kill all of us. I'm still worried and scared because Cambodia is very close to Thailand. They might do whatever they want. We have to live in hiding.
Unable to go to school or stray too far, the boys' only playground is a stairwell of the apartment building, keeping them close to their new baby brother. Born in Bangkok just 3 months after his father's murder, it was a bittersweet time for Richano.
I felt such pain as I remembered my past deliveries when my husband cared for me. From the day he was killed to the day I gave birth, I have felt so alone.
Living in this tiny one-room apartment without a kitchen, the family struggles to make ends meet. Their lives in limbo as they wait for asylum in a third country. They hope Australia offers them the protection they now crave.
It is painful for us. We are Khmer people, but we can no longer live in our own country. I've lost my husband, I've lost my home, and I've lost my country. I'm determined that I must be strong. My husband once told me that in his absence, I should not cry, but go on, no matter what. I must stand up and challenge them.